Both of these PlayStation exclusives deliver a captivating experience, but only one will come out on top. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're pitting two of the PlayStation 4's biggest titles against each other. Santa Monica Studios recently released God of War, and Naughty Dog's legendary hit, The Last of Us, which has been remastered for the PS4.
Sammy, there is something bad going on. We have got to get out of here. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
For more gaming videos, check out our new spin-off channel, Mojo Plays, for in-depth reviews, thoughtful video essays, detailed character origins, and insightful commentary. Mojo Plays, games smarter. For the sake of a fair comparison for this matchup, we're not going to be taking the original God of War trilogy into account, nor will The Last of Us Left Behind DLC be factored in. It's just the two games as they are standing on their own merits. Keep in mind that there will be some major spoilers for both games in this comparison, so you've been warned.
It's what she'd want. And you know it.
Round 1, Story. After his wife has passed away, Kratos, along with his son Atreus, must journey to the highest point in the realm to spread her ashes.
Stay calm, boy!
I am! This is great!
As the duo progress, they'll encounter different monsters and gods from Norse mythology. Many of these characters are aware of Kratos and his past, but we learn early on that Kratos has not told his son. This leaves us wondering throughout the rest of our adventure how Atreus is going to handle it when the ghost of Sparta does tell him what happened to his last family.
But the truth is, I was born a god.
The Last of Us is quite the emotional roller coaster too. Mankind has been pushed to near extinction following a fungal outbreak that has turned a chunk of the population into zombie-like monsters. And in this world where resources are extremely scarce, smuggling duo Joel and Tess are tasked with transporting a teenage girl named Ellie, who is, by the way, immune to the source of the infection, to the base of the Fireflies. Joel is apprehensive at first about transporting Ellie, but is kind of left as the only option when Tess goes out too soon.
We're almost done. Stay focused.
Yes, ma'am.
From there, it's an emotional roller coaster as Joel and Ellie are forced to survive this bleak and depressing world with dangers around every corner, with their surrogate father-daughter-like relationship really driving the main themes of the story.
Shut the hell up. I got you. I got you.
So, as you can see, both stories have very strong fatherhood elements, but it's their end goals that end up deciding this round, as they both require our heroes to travel to a distant location across dangerous territory. The Last of Us' one makes sense considering the vast distance that Joel and Ellie have to travel, but God of War does kind of suffer in this regard due to the fact that it feels like the goalposts are constantly being pushed back farther. And this is evident from the start, when you can see that the mountain is in the distance, only to get to the top to discover, oops, wrong place. And unfortunately, that's just kinda one example, so as tight as both stories are, The Last of Us takes this round. Winner, The Last of Us.
Don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
Round 2, Lore.
But I am your monster no longer.
While God of War 2018 is a sequel to an established franchise, the lore in this game ends up holding up entirely on its own, mostly due to the new location of Midgard and the Norse gods that inhabit it. This game borrows from real-world Nordic tales, from the ever-present and visually stunning World Serpent to a series of shrines, each of which tells a fascinating story thanks to Atreus' translating.
This one's called Surtur. Must be a fire giant.
Aye, the first and original.
Of course, the biggest depository of lore dropping is Mimir, a reanimated severed head who on occasions will provide Kratos and Atreus with stories about the Norse gods and how they came to be as they are.
Had I known the witch in the woods was Freya herself, I never would have suggested this.
Freya? The goddess Freya?
You didn't know either?
The Last of Us is a bit more grounded in, air quotes, realism due to the fact that it's based on our world. But even then, Naughty Dog went to great lengths to bring the lore of their world to life. Notes, journals, and personal belongings you find scattered everywhere tell you a bit more about the world, with many providing their own mini-stories as they give you a glimpse of the apocalypse from a different perspective. Perhaps the most iconic example of this is the scene in a sewer where a group of survivors had tried to survive underground and had even built a working community, only for it to come crashing down.
Who would stay in here? Someone who thought they could keep a place like this safe.
Even though we can appreciate the stories told in The Last of Us, we gotta give this round to God of War. The Norse mythology goes deep, and with every shrine and story sharing something about the world, you can tell that the developers did their research in crafting this fully fleshed out set of lore. Winner, God of War.
thought you'd be bigger.
Round 3, characters.
Athena.
Obviously, this isn't the first time we've met Kratos, but he's an entirely different character than what we're used to. You can tell that he has a lot of regrets and only wants what's best for his son. In many ways, he's a very relatable character, especially for those who are or have acted as fathers, or even, parents. As for Atreus, he's an excellent addition to the series too. There's something about his naive and curious behavior that helps us relate to Kratos even more, even if he's talking a bit too much or making mistakes. However, we can't help get excited whenever we see Atreus improving his skills in battle too.
I don't care if he kills me, I will protect him!
Even as their adventure progresses, the way both characters develop is incredibly compelling, especially Atreus, who goes through various mood phases as a young child would, and eventually comes to his own as a remarkable fighter. Seriously, how epic was the mid-air team up against Baldur? With a compelling story often comes captivating characters. As young as The Last of Us might be in comparison to the God of War franchise, which, again, we said we weren't counting, Joel and Ellie have become two of the most iconic characters in video games. Right from the start, you'll learn a lot about Joel's history with one of the most heartbreaking scenes in video games.
Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby, stay with me.
Whereas Ellie's character is developed a lot more slowly throughout the game, which does strike a very interesting difference between the two. You'll notice that even through their occasional conflicts, these two are almost always as father and daughter.
You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
Of course, we aren't kidding when we said this game is an emotional roller coaster. Their relationship will have many happy moments, but there are just as many tense moments in between. This is best shown in the winter chapter of the game, where the two characters' roles are reversed after Joel is badly injured, and we get to see Ellie shine more as she starts to take after her new adopted father figure.
You're gonna make it.
God of War boasts an equally strong duo of heroes as The Last of Us does, but Joel and Ellie take the point for this round nonetheless. As pieces of their backstory start coming together, you really start caring for these two, which makes everything else so emotionally resonant. The character development is fully fleshed out, and it's heartwarming to see their father-daughter-like relationship begin to blossom. Winner, The Last of Us.
Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
Round 4, graphics. Now, I know what you're thinking, how can this possibly be fair when The Last of Us was first released on a whole different console generation? While horsepower is nice, it is how you use it that counts. And The Last of Us pushed the PS3 so far that it still remains a visually stunning game.
The guns he gave you, they weren't his to sell. I want them back.
The Last of Us gives players many views to stop and take a breather, even through the decimated buildings, dark environments, and submerged areas. Despite the beauty of the scenery, it quickly reminds you of how bleak everything really is. The attention to detail is really incredible.
Is this really all they had to worry about? Boys? Movies?
God of War obviously doesn't hold back in its visual department either. It sports a much more vibrant color palette than The Last of Us to really capture its mystical world, even if it's anything but whimsical. The detail in the game's lighting is worth a special mention alone, as the contrasting weather effects you encounter throughout your adventure makes no two areas feel the same. Furthermore, the architecture of some of the ancient temples and structures you come across are breathtaking, thanks once again to the incredible attention to detail. And as a result, these locations feel very believable. An incredible accomplishment considering the design team had very few real-world references to go off.
Is he friendly?
Boy.
These are both visually stunning games, and even when not taking into account the generational differences between the two, God of War still comes out on top, mostly because of its vibrant and diverse environments and characters, and how beautifully they're all realized. Winner, God of War.
You will not do this!
Round 5, gameplay. One thing The Last of Us makes very clear to the player is that ammunition and resources are very limited in this world. So attempting for a full frontal assault is often not the best strategy. As such, the game pushes a heavy emphasis on stealth as you work your way around enemies to distract them and eventually take them out. You're given a lot of options with different weapons and expendable supplies like shivs and bombs to plan your route of attack, which can lead to incredibly tense moments. It's definitely far from the most in-depth stealth system in gaming, thanks to Metal Gear Solid, but it does offer the player plenty of variety. Gameplay outside of the combat, though, unfortunately is The Last of Us' biggest weakness, as puzzle variety is sorely limited, and the strict linear structure offers very little in the way of freedom. God of War, on the other hand, goes for a much more direct approach with its combat. It opts to go for a faster, Dark Souls-y style of combat system, though not quite as in-depth as those games, mostly due to a shortage of weapon variety. That being said, what it does well. The combination of light and heavy attacks, combined with the special runic attacks and the ability to command Atreus in battle, ends up making every encounter fun while remaining challenging and rewarding. Outside of combat, God of War offers a bit more variety too. While puzzles do suffer from the solutions nearly always involving throwing your axe at something, things do get far more creative, especially when you're able to go off of the main path and attempt one of the many side quests the game offers. When it comes to combat between the two games, it's really an apples to oranges comparison over whether you like indirect or direct action, or if you're into guns or axes. However, God of War gets the upper hand by offering so many different things for us to do with its semi-open world gameplay and the encouragement to thoroughly explore every area for collectibles and side quests. Winner, God of War.
We are not men. We are more than that. The responsibility is far greater.
This one almost ended in a tie due to both games' vastly different approaches to combat, which often comes down to personal preference. But God of War just snuck ahead thanks to its offering of so much more with its world, and not just in things to do, but in its lore and level design as well. That being said though, once The Last of Us Part 2 comes out, chances are God of War will be up for a rematch. But we'll have to wait and see.
Who I was is not who you be. We must be better.
Do you agree with our verdict? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.